Morning. Welcome to Dawn in Siberia. Whoops. Let's do the good life meditation. You gotta focus. I cooked my breakfast. It was a real windy, dusty night last night. The storm really, it was a great storm. Great dust storm came off of the flats out there and just blew a huge wall of dust. It was like that scene from the Dust Bowl. Just that great scene of this black wall or the brown wall of dust just coming. It was the same thing, not quite as complete or dark, but very intimidating. I was quite anxious as I set up the tent. Probably did a little overkill on the setup, but when it finally came, the tent was practically just leaning over. But I made it through the night. It was very nice. Very reflective night. So this is the good life meditation for today. Let's jump in. Begin with an affirmation of human and civil rights. I need to remember that my fellow human beings have rights that protect their liberty and their autonomy, and that when I can keep these in mind, and when others keep that in mind with regard to me and everyone else, then we can live in better cooperation together, while at the same time being able to pursue our individual interests and ambitions to the highest degree possible. Kind of a lofty aim, but I think it's a worthwhile one. That's why I make it the first thing. Next to the 6 objectives. These are the things that I'm striving for in life. The 20 principles that follow after that are the things that guide me towards these objectives. So the 6 objectives are as follows. 1 is the good and effective use of time. To not let my limited time on this planet fritter away, but to really make good use of these opportunities, these days and these moments, these hours. I really, I've got no time for reruns. There's too much new and novel stuff to live and appreciate. I don't want to spend my time passing time, but living through time. It sounds so cliche or kind of that hippie, good, touchy-feely stuff. But there's something to that stuff. That's why I keep coming back to it from time to time. Sorry while I eat. I'm sorry if I make sounds. It's just, this is the right time. The sun's going to come up soon. It's going to blast heat. I'm going to need to be moving. 2, second objective, is the development and maintenance of good and sound, life principles. This used to be number 1 until I came up with the one to, guard after my time. But because I thought that was a more effective thing as well, that fed into the second. So there is something to the order of everything in here. I did order them just so. The development and maintenance of good, sound life principles is the objective of creating the foundation, the operating system that I'll use to live my life. It was a long time coming for me, 52 years before I was able to, put together my operating system. I had to make a lot of mistakes along the way. And learn a lot. A lot of the stuff that's in there is just borrowed stuff that I found from elsewhere. 3, the cultivation of good emotional reactions. I strive to become a man who doesn't fly off the handle reacting to life, but instead can just take in what happens. When my body, my mind, there's parts of my mind that are emotionally driven. When those things, protest out and say, I object, Your Honor. let's have a tantrum. I can, hold those things down and say, wait a minute, let's just sample and nibble away at that emotion and see from whence it comes, and then come up with a better way to handle that. Good emotional reactions to the world around me. That includes anger, frustration, passion of every sort. Next is performing good actions, just doing good things through the course of the day. Things like pick up a bit of trash here and there, hold the door open for someone, smile at a stranger, get up early and go wash my wife's car, or whatever it is, just good things that help contribute to make the world a better place. Namely, social good is the one I'm after. The last two, 5 and 6, are 5 and 6 objectives are to recognize my true limits and recognize my true opportunities. Those are 5 and 6. So I try to see, what is the scope of my real capabilities? I'm not that strong. How much can I actually live? How much can I actually pursue in life? What can I actually do? Not to stop myself, but to know where my real limits are, physically, mentally, every way. And then to look at real opportunity is to see what lays before me that I can do that's really within my scope of power. What things can I do? Could I write a book? Could I have a great adventure? Could I cultivate a good relationship with my loved ones? These types of things. Can I go to the moon? Probably not. Hold on a second. The train go by. I'm gonna eat a little bit. Let's get on with the 20 principles now. The first of these is war. I wake up every morning ready to go to war with myself. Namely with myself, but everything else as well. Namely with principles, ideas, and notions. I want to challenge these things. I want to find where their faults are, where their weaknesses are. I don't want to settle on any principle that just feels good. I want it to have a good sound foundation. No pillars of salt or pillars of sand in my operating system. 2, the principle of reason and the sub-principles of honesty and objectivity. Reason is what I like to call the governing faculty. Actually, I picked that up somewhere else. Can't remember where. Maybe Marcus Aurelius. Reason is the tool that I use in the pursuit of my war. It's the instrument that I use, the blunt and fine instrument of reason, to try to break down and dismantle my principles, to find where their weaknesses are, and if I can, destroy them. My greatest objective would be to end the day bereft of sound principles, bereft of any principles, left alone and wandering in a wilderness of confusion. 3. Let me go back to that for a minute, too. The reason that I'd rather live that way, I'd rather live confused and uncertain, but yet having been honest with myself about the world, than holding on to certainty that can't stand on its own 2 legs. There you go. 3. The homunculus. I didn't make that word up. It's a word that describes an imaginary little man, like a little guy who lives usually inside your head. You lift your head off, you see a little guy in there with the wheels and the buttons and stuff like that. Of course, there is no such thing, but I use this as a shortcut reminder to myself that there's a piece of my brain, not the deep reptilian brain. The brain layers. It's not that deep part that's all instinct and stuff like that, just being bathed in emotions, lust and anger. But there's another part of me, the frontal lobe here, that seems to be more involved with cognition, and that's the part of me where the homunculus lives. That's why it feels like it resides right behind my forehead and stares out between my eyes. The more I develop this, the more it really feels like he's this guy that's operating like a tractor. But like I said, these emotional impulses that are coming up and all these senses from the world, and his job is to broker all of that and manage all of that and keep control of my emotions and maintain my life in the direction of my objectives in accordance with my principles. It's a lot to ask of a little homunculus. The second purpose of the homunculus is to remind me that there appears to be no reason to think we have anything like a soul. That seems to be a made-up idea. And the homunculus will not survive my death. When I die, it winks out. Kind of like a candle, snuffed out. Where does the candle go? It's just no more. Kind of like when the music stops. Where does the music go? It's just no more. As soon as this apparatus stops, the homunculus dies and is gone, and there is no more. A good thing to remember. Turn the seat off. Next, principle 4 is the home of good and evil. Good and evil reside with the homunculus and here in my brain. And good and evil are opinions that I have of the world. They're decisions that I make. They're and I can share these with others. You and I can come to an agreement about what constitutes a good and what constitutes evil. In my worldview, I define good as whatever contributes to the improved well-being of the many. And evil is not what makes things bad or contributes to the not. It's not what makes things bad. Evil is the conscious decision to do things in opposition to the common good. Now, you and I can argue about what those things are, and that's why it's good, because we can argue. And this is where the having good and evil as being property of the homunculus differs from good and evil being absolutes floating out there in space that are brokered and managed and given by God. Those can't be argued. I mean, those are they're engraved in stone, so to speak. So when my commandments don't match your commandments, the only option is one of us has got to go. Versus, if good and evil are at the whim of reason, then you and I, if you're good and my good don't match, well, hey, we can talk about it. We can argue about it, and we can come to some agreement, or maybe some truce at least, and we can live. It's a much more manageable way to get by. Next is this is principle 5, the principle of purpose. In my worldview, my little operating system here, life has two purposes. The first one is to procreate, to make more of me, get my genes into the next generation. Now, of course, that's an automatic want in our case, and we've a little bit overdone it, probably for this planet. There's plenty of us. But for my part, I'm just human. I did it too. Of course I don't regret having my daughter, but what I'm simply saying is, we can probably throttle back on that a little bit as a species if we want to. But I did, and it feels good, and I'm glad I did. I've got my daughter, and I fulfilled that purpose. So after that, it seems like purpose is to raise the child to adulthood, and then perform the role of the grandparent and help create the good society, so to speak. I didn't even mean to use that cliche word, but and then die and get the hell out of the way. So there's room for more. Of course, that's the operation of evolution, to be constantly clearing out the old experiments in favor of new and more diverse experiments. So, my daughter's raised, practically. So what are the purposes there? It's time for me to die? No. As I just said, I can be a grandparent and the like, but there's more. I can make my own dang purpose if I want to. And I have. And I call that virtue. Virtue, again, coming back to good and evil. Virtue, I define virtue as the performance of acts and decision and execution of decisions that improve the well-being of the many. I just want to help make the world a better place for us and for everything else. That's part of why I share these videos. When I stumble across, I developed this little operating system here that serves me very well. These daily affirmations do a lot to instill these values into my mind and make them operational. And I want to share with you, just in case you find anything that's of use in here. Next, 6, the atomic principle. Everything in the universe is made of atoms, which are in turn molecules and compounds and matter of every sort. Even energy is matter is in fact a frozen form of energy. So energy and matter, and it's all just bits and pieces that come together to form for a while a bowl or a rock or a man, and then change into something else. It's worthwhile to remember that, because very, 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 very soon I'll be dead. This stuff that I've got is going to be burned up in a fire. Most of the energy that's stored is going to dissipate out into the atmosphere, maybe out into space. My homunculus will wink out, and I will be gone utterly. So too you. Very, very soon. And when I say very, very soon, sometimes when I write that, I see people give unhappy faces. I don't mean I'm going to die right away, but I am going to die right away. I mean, this is going to be over very quickly. And that's not a lament. That is just a fact and a reminder to come to a place like this. I didn't want to come here last night, but I came, because I knew time was short. So the atomic principle is a catalyst to lots of thought, as you can see. Next is the principle of nature. This is 7. Principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, including you and me. And it's worthwhile to recognize what the nature of these things are, so that you can work in better harmony with the things around you, and also to recognize what your own nature is. Sorry. So you can live according to your own nature. I'm constantly reminding myself of the nature of my workplace and my coworkers, which does wonders to help smooth the working relationships I have with them. In fact, as I begin each day, I try to imagine the encounters that I have and the nature of the participants that I'll be working with, including myself. And I try to kind of see how that might play out and see where the speed bumps may be and the obstacles and the opportunities. And lo and behold, when those things then come, they're less a surprise. And when the opportunities avail themselves, I'm more able and capable of taking advantage of it. Taking advantage of them for the benefit of everyone. By me being calmer, more collected man by not getting upset at people for characteristics that are simply a part of their nature. I think it makes things smoother, recognizing the nature of things. Next, principle 8 is the principle of maturity. Maturity has two subcomponents, wisdom and fortitude. Ooh, I'm feeling kind of melancholy. Not melancholy, but mellow. This desert sunrise is really doing something to me. I just want to stop talking and just... But it's important to finish this. Maturity consists of wisdom and fortitude. Wisdom you gain through experience. Fortitude is the willingness to exercise that wisdom through thick or thin and towards the principles and objectives that we have in mind. That is maturity. Fortitude can be taught to the young and applied through discipline. That's why we do this with the military. We teach people to follow rules, to push through, to endeavor to persevere. It's a shortcut to maturity. We need them. We need young men and women to act that way in a military setting. It's harder to instill wisdom because you have to have that through trial and error. But when you combine the two, especially later in life, it's a powerful force. If you've got the wisdom of your age and the fortitude of trying hard and in building that quality in yourself. Wow, I lack the fortitude. I'm still working on that one. And I wouldn't go so far as to claim I have much wisdom. I have a lot of mistakes. But I guess in a way that's what wisdom is having a nice instead of a rock collection, a mistake collection. Just show off to your mind. And remember back in 08 when I lost everything, you know. Okay, next, social principle. This is number 9. Social principle, we are social animals. We need one another to survive. Our best ends are social ends, so let's reach out and try to be together as I sit here alone in the desert. Next is, and this is 10, the Feast of Offal. Offal, of course, is the waste of butchery. You know, this stuff, you wouldn't want to sell it at the counter, so you put it into a sausage and sell that, right? But offal is, I describe it also as the waste that comes out of us through our unprincipled, undisciplined living. If we're living and we don't have principles to guide us, then we're banging our heads against the wall. We're not recognizing the nature of things. We're not controlling our emotions. We're not heading towards objectives that are meaningful and getting the satisfaction that comes of realizing those. And it's a pretty miserable life, and we tend to vent and let that out at others. Anger, road rage, passive aggressive, all these things. And when we give that out, it's like throwing out all the awful of our life. And what's funny is, instead of other people looking at that and saying yuck, or feeling sorry for you that you got all this awful, all this waste and gross stuff, guess what we do? We gobble it up. Oh, you're angry? Oh, let me take in some of that anger, and I'll get angry at you too. I'm going to angry at you. You slighted me. I perceive some slight from you. Well, screw you. So it's a strange thing. We consume the Feast of Offal and then participate in it. So what I try to remind myself to do is to not participate in it, to recognize when someone's spewing it out. But like, for example, in road rage, when some guy comes by and maybe he thought that I cut him off or something like that, and he flips me off or something like that, instead of, grabbing that, consuming it and throwing it right back at him, I try to control my emotions and ask myself, did I do something? Did I cut him off? If so, then maybe give him a gentle wave. And recognize also that if I didn't do anything, if he's really in the wrong, then a little pity is in order for the fact that he's so out of control of his emotions and his living a rather unprincipled, undisciplined life. It's a better way to live. Not consuming the Feast of Offal. It's good breakfast. Let me just get this like that. Next, Last 10. So I'll kind of go quickly. I think I've been doing this for a long time. Last 10. Next is temperance. Very important one. 3 sub-principles. Suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Temperance is the ability to control our consumption of food, drink, work, play, sex, anything at all, including our emotions as they rise within us. Usually they rise up here from our lower brain. When they rise up in us, bubble up, instead of just, it's kind of like the Feast of Ulfa, instead of gobbling it up and racing with it, just nibble away at the emotion. Begin using your cognitive, your higher functioning, just to kind of look at it, because you can control it in a way. It takes practice. And then ask yourself, whence this anger comes? Whence this frustration? Where does this all come from? What is this all about? What can I do about it? Temperance has the 3 sub-principles, like I said, of suffering. Suffering because when we exercise restraint, we're suffering. I'd really like to have that extra donut, but I won't. Gosh, it kind of hurts because I'm not, but I'm exercising temperance. Simplicity because living a simple life is a great way to inculcate temperance as a way of life, by consuming little, by owning little, doing little. And apathy, a word that has a bad rap. We usually think of apathy as something bad. But apathy also, you can think of apathy as, I just don't give a damn. People suffering in a drought or a famine. How does that affect me? Not that type of apathy. I'm talking about apathy where you can recognize what is not within your control, and segregate yourself from the emotional connection. So not so that you're not doing anything about it. You can work towards it, but you're not assuming the responsibility and the great weight that comes with that of owning it in a way. It's a delicate balance, because if you go too far with this, then you become disconnected and you leave the world in a worse place. But if you can exercise just enough apathy so that it doesn't become a great giant burden upon you, you can work to fix it, but you don't reach underneath and try to pick up the whole damn thing yourself. That's a very powerful thing to do. It takes a lot of work. I'm still working very much on that. So temperance, suffering, simplicity, and apathy. The next, agency and the great indifference. Agents are simply anyone and anything that's alive. You and I are agents. These plants are agents. All the bugs are agents. Out here, the jackrabbits, whatever it was that climbed into the tent last night and stung under my arm or bit me, that was an agent. And everything that's not an agent are like inanimate objects. And they, guess what? They don't give a shit. They don't care. This rock does not give a dang about me. The thing that stung my arm at least acknowledged me enough to thrust its stinger into my arm. But and that's something, Sometimes it's nice to be acknowledged, even if it's in that way. And what I'm trying to set up is a dichotomy here between the world that recognizes us, that's alive, that's a part of us, and the world that just doesn't give a damn, the inanimate world. And guess what? It appears to be most of the universe is like that. Now, if you're a person that believes that there are God or gods out there, then you've kind of filled the world with agency, especially if it's a benevolent, omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, omniscient, omnipresent, all the omnis. It's a pretty powerful thing. And you can find comfort just about everywhere, but I don't find any good reason to think that that's true. So in absence of that, I'm left with a universe that just doesn't seem to care very much at all. And that's a startling thing. It's a disturbing thing in some ways. I call that the great indifference. And it's out here in spades. Right behind me, right behind that tent, is the deep water wilderness. And I can go back there 3 miles and see the great indifference face to face. It's here too. It's a little harder to see because of all the artifacts of agency, but I'm getting better at spotting it. Next is the best seat in the house. This is number 13. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but be all right just with who I am, where I am. in what I'm doing. This doesn't mean that I settle on it. This doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to improve my circumstance, but I'm going to be okay along the way. Again, another delicate balance to walk, because if you go too far on this one, then you'll be simply settled, happy to sit in front of a TV in a recliner and not improve your life in any way. That's my own personal bias against sitting in the TV in front of the recliner, or sitting in a recliner in front of the TV. To me, that doesn't seem like it's availing myself very well of the opportunity of life. Yet, while I am doing that, if I can abide this principle, then I'll be okay with that too. So it's being all right with wherever I am, whoever I am, and whatever I'm doing. Not quite no regrets, but not quite. It's not quite no regrets, but it's not quite settling either. Or feeling perpetually upset about circumstances. Because we all have that, we all play that what if game, right? Yeah, interesting. Okay, next, 14, which is the Path of Wildness. Path of Wildness is a mechanism to recognize that when a decision needs to be made, that we can allocate some time to make that decision. And then when that time comes, and think about it, when that time comes, to either do one of two things. Either, if we can afford to, give ourselves more time if we think we need it, or make the decision at that point with the information that we have. If it's not enough information to really make a good decision, then I allow myself to use my gut to inform that decision. I usually tend to avoid following my gut, unless it's in a circumstance like that, when I need to move forward and I don't quite have enough information to make the decision, but I need to make the decision now. That's the Path of Wildness. And I came up with this when I was living in Japan, and I'd be wandering off in the wilderness out there. I didn't have any maps, I didn't know where I was going. I would come to a canyon, a fork in the canyon, and right or left. And, I don't know. I need to make a decision, because usually I go up and come back a different way. So I need to go one way to get back. One canyon may lead over a waterfall, one may lead me back to the car. Which one am I going to do? I kind of stop, think about it for a little bit, think about the terrain. What do I know about the area? What from Google Maps that I looked at before? And then just kind of form my gut. If I can have it all, oh yeah, I remember this is the right way to go, left. And then I'll go. If I can't quite do it, I kind of go, okay, I got some facts. What is my gut telling me? Right. And I'll go right. And the virtue in this is that rather than just being stuck, it's better to sometimes to move forward, even if it leads us off the edge of a cliff. Because there's virtue in moving in forward motion in many points in life, rather than, like I said, than getting stuck. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. Okay, early on in life, when we're usually in our 20s, we emerge into the young adulthood, and we're cautioned by people. Our parents typically usually say, now make sure you get enough and good quality education, go to a good school, go far enough, get a master's degree, and then they'll find a nice girl or a guy to settle down with and get married. You got to start a family, and also don't forget to start putting money in the savings account, and save for that rainy day. Now, some of us run so far with this that we go along the education track, get that refined degree, find that perfect job, find ourselves a spouse, put all of our extra stuff in the bank, and then find that when we become older, that somewhere along the way something was missing. We wonder what that was. Now, I'm not saying it was a bad choice, and there are a lot of people to whom that route is really a very, very good route to go. But there are others to whom that route leaves them wanting of something else. Now, call it a first world dilemma if you like, but I think it's very real. And this is what I call the risk of avoiding risk. Because in trying to make sure that we avoid these surface level risks, making sure good education, find a spouse, and save money, we may be, and the cocoon that puts us in life, we may be neglecting the life that we want to live and living according to our own nature, or even having a chance to develop our own nature. And guess what? You only have a limited amount of time to do that typically. it's very important to do that in your youth. You can try later on in life, but it's a lot harder because we're so much further down the road. So the point I want to make is to watch out in pursuing the surface level risks for the very deep risk, the hidden risk of not living according to our nature, which can come back to haunt us later in life. And by then it's pretty hard to fix that, although with some good resolve I think something can be done. Because typically the chance to discover, develop, and live according to our nature is a function of our youth. Next is sin and damnation. I count 5 sins in my life. First is the sin of falsity. Second is credulity. 3 is faith. 4 and 5 are superstition and dogma. And really they're all the same thing, which is falsity. Falsity is living a false life. Abiding, accepting something that isn't true. We've got a cheating wife or a husband, and no, I accept. It's all right. You're denying the reality. You're not living a true life. You believe that there's some God that's overlooking the universe and watching us and will manage and guard our everlasting soul, or even believing in a soul. There's no good reason to believe any of that's true. It's taking a shortcut to someplace comfortable to get us there without the need to do the hard work, and not necessarily. Or what's even more scary is that you do the hard work and you find you were wrong, and then what? And then you're left with nothing. Next, complete oblivion. Complete oblivion comes when we die and it all just winks out. There's nothing left. And when we're dead, there's no final reunion, no final reconciliation, and no final justice. We won't see the people that we left behind. We won't have a chance to reconcile the differences that we had with anyone. We won't have any final justice for the people that grieved us or did us wrong. We will simply be gone, winked out forever. It's a sobering idea. No final reunion, no final reconciliation, and no justice. No final justice. When we die, it's just all over. That's the great promise and thread of complete oblivion. Sobering thought. Just 3 more left. The great life adventure. The great life adventure is an opportunity to live the life that you want to live. You know, we appear in this world, we have these moments and some opportunities, and we can think, oh man, I'd really like to do something or be something or experience something, but you know, I need to make sure I have enough money and find that right person and get that education. I'll live the safe life. Versus the great adventure. And maybe that safe life is your great adventure. I kind of think though that that's typically a default position. So I'd recommend a great life adventure, especially if you're young. Give yourself the decade of your 20s, the whole dang decade. The season of philosophy. It's a time when we can record what we've learned along the way, particularly through the result of our great life adventure. This is kind of what I'm doing right now. This is my season of philosophy. The words, I've got the words now, they're coming to me. They won't for very long. I'm 53 years old. I can already feel my mental faculties failing. It won't be long before I won't be able to do this anymore, or I won't be able to do it very effectively, as effectively as I do it now. Assuming it's very effective. So strike while the iron's hot, you know. Make that video. Write those words. Especially if you've given yourself some great life adventures, you'll probably have something to write about. Especially if you've given yourself a great life adventure. A big one. Like becoming somebody else. Living another life. Completely flipping things upside down. Last one is agency, arena and utility. All of this is an arena for the exercise of principles in pursuit of the objectives. Try to remind myself that every time I'm in a sticky situation where things aren't going the way I want, that is the best moment, the best opportunity to really leverage and use my principles, and to begin to, see the fruits of my efforts to achieve my objectives. And that's it. That's the good life. I do this every day. I remind myself at dawn of my objectives and my principles, and usually I spend a little time to reflect, forecast the day a little bit, think about what's coming. For example, today I might have a little hard time getting out of here. I could drop the bike in the sandy road going out, which would be bad. I could break my leg. I could wind up sitting there with a broken leg on the road. I could run out of gas. My bike could malfunction. I could crash along the way. Some of my family might be hurt. My wife or daughter might be injured in an accident today. I could lose my job on Monday. Could be diagnosed with cancer tomorrow. Probably not tomorrow, it's Saturday. But these are the things that are not just possible, but they are likely in every capacity. So I remind myself of these things so that I'm ready to better prepared to handle them, although I'm sure they'll still nail me just like anything else. But this doesn't make me, stew in frustration or anger, or just want to hide away from the world. It makes me all the more resolute to live better, to live more deliberately, and to love and cherish my family so much. And with that, I think I'll stop the camera. I'm going to take a little walk around in the desert. You have a great day. Make it a good life. Take care.